The movie begins with four siblings playing in their home, named Chris, Catherine, and twins Carrie and Corey. They all live with their mother as their father stays away due to his work. That day, their father, named Christopher Dollinger, returns home to give his children a surprise. All the kids were really happy to see him. He also brought some toys for everyone. Christopher also bought a necklace for her wife Corinne. She was very happy to receive it. They both kissed. Christopher announces that he has been promoted to head of sales. Everyone was thrilled except Catherine, as she knew that his dad is going to leave for work again. She ran towards her room and lay on the bed in sadness. Christopher came in and tried to lighten Catherine's mood by gifting her a beautiful ring. Catherine hugged him. Later that day, everyone threw a surprise party for Christopher for being promoted while he was outside the house. But unfortunately, a police officer showed up. He informed the family that Christopher died in a car accident. All of them are left in an utter state of shock. Catherine went inside the house to check on her mother. Corinne was struggling as she had no skills whatsoever. Christopher married him only because she was pretty. She assures Catherine that she is pretty as well as determined. The next day, Corinne informs Chris and Catherine that they are moving with her mother to Virginia. Chris and Catherine were reluctant at first, but she convinced them by telling them that her mother is super wealthy. She also said that everything inside their house, including the house, isn't theirs, so they have no option. They both agreed. They all left that night by train. The door of the house was opened by Corinne's mother, Olivia. She gave them an annoyed look. She asks them to follow her upstairs and opens an empty room for them to stay. She orders Corinne to not let Chris and Catherine sleep in the same bed as they are adults. Her mother informs her that this is the only room where her husband can't hear them. Corinne's parents were annoyed with her as she married against their will, so Olivia and Corinne think it's best not to inform her father anything. The arrival of kids was kept secret from him. Corinne assures Catherine and Chris that she is trying to reconnect with her father so she can be added back to his will. Just then, Olivia sees a ring in Catherine's hand and angrily takes it. Corinne and Olivia leave the room by locking it. Next morning, Olivia brings them food and asks them to utilize it for the whole day as she can't keep on running up and down the stairs. It might lead to suspicion from the servants. She then informs them of some rules that they have to follow, like keeping the room neat and tidy, keeping their hair brushed, and keeping their bodies clean and fully clothed. She also says that no girl and boy can use the bathroom together, and also keep it all quiet. Olivia also shows them a door in their room, which leads to the attic. She informs them that last Friday of every month maids come to clean the room, so they must hide in the attic so no one can ever see or hear them. The kids went to the attic, and it looked old and abandoned. The twins didn't like the feel of the place. Chris made a swing for them to sit on and enjoy. Corinne comes to the house at night, and the kids start complaining about the place. Olivia comes in, and Carrie starts screaming at her, and Corey bites her arm. Olivia throws the kids aside and starts scolding Corinne for their behavior. Corinne yells that she will leave the house, to which Olivia chuckles and says she can if she wants. She then asks Corinne to remove her shirt as she sees the kids to see the punishment for bad behavior in the house. The kids were terrified to see the red marks on her back. Olivia warns them that this is what happens if one misbehaves. A few moments later, Corinne explains to Catherine and Chris that her mother is angry as when she was little she was close to her father. They used to do everything together. Over the years, his father became busy with work, and she was left lonely. One day, her father's half-brother, that is her uncle, came to live with them as his mother recently died. They fell in love and eloped. That man was none other than Christopher. This made her family filled with rage. Her father disinherited her. Catherine was disturbed by this revelation, but Chris assures her that he loves her no matter what. A week passes by, and the kids are painting in the attic. Catherine was annoyed as the whole week her mother didn't come to see them once. Just when Catherine was leaving to get water for the paint, she barged into Olivia in their room. Olivia interrogates her about Chris and her. She says they are just making a fake garden in the attic so that the twins are not scared. After a few days, Corin comes to visit the kids and brings them some paints and toys. Catherine was angry at her as it had been over a month since they are still living in that place. Corin says that she needs time to convince her father. Catherine becomes frustrated living there and asks her to inform him about them. She was shocked that he doesn't want to meet his grandchildren. Corin then reveals that her father has just accepted her on one condition, that she doesn't have any kids, so she can't tell her father ever. Catherine was disappointed in her. The time passes by and now it is winter. All the kids decided to make Olivia a small handmade card as a Christmas present to her. Olivia saw the card and was left speechless, so she left the room. The next day, Corin came in and brought everyone Christmas presents, new dresses, and a television, as they have been cut off from the outside world for a long time. She also informs them that her father is throwing a Christmas party tonight. Catherine insists to come. She said that they will be quiet and just watch the party, to which Corin agrees. Corin hides them in a liquor cabinet from where they can see the party. After some time, Corin's father came. He was a very old man in a wheelchair. He gave Corin a necklace. Olivia was not happy after seeing that. Chris and Catherine start heading back to their room. A man named Winslow came in, so they hid around the corner. They saw Corin and Winslow chatting with each other, where Winslow mentions that he is excited to start a life together with Corin. Catherine was not happy to see this, but Chris assures her. Catherine goes back to the room, while Chris wants to explore the house. He starts to explore the house room by room. Suddenly, Corin comes into their room and starts yelling at Catherine, asking her about Chris. She starts scolding her. Just then, Chris enters the room. Ragged in anger, Corin slapped him and left the room locked. The next morning, Corin came into their room and apologized to them. She kissed Chris as a sign of apology. Catherine inquires about the guy Bart Winslow. Corin says that he is just her father's attorney, so she needs to be close with him. She starts manipulating them by saying that they can live somewhere else with no money, which might have hardships, but she can conquer them as she loves her kids. After hearing all this, all the kids console her by hugging her. One day, Catherine spots Chris reading a women's magazine on the rooftop. She asks him why he is looking at these magazines, to which he asks her to drop the topic. Catherine then asks her mother about it later that day. Corin informs her that since they are getting older, their bodies are changing. She gives Catherine a dress. Later that day, Catherine tried on the dress and was looking in the mirror to see how it looked. Just then, Chris walked in on Catherine. He was flustered after seeing her. Suddenly, they hear a voice, and Chris ran towards Catherine to help her hide the dress. Olivia comes and starts accusing them of doing bad things. She took a scissor to cut off Catherine's hair, to which Chris confronts and stops her. Olivia gave them a warning that if Chris doesn't cut Catherine's hair, then she won't give any of them food for a week. They all start rationing the food. Chris and Catherine were discussing the food situation on the table. Olivia comes into the room and keeps a basket of food on the table and leaves. Later that night, when all were sleeping, Catherine noticed her hair was laced with tar. Chris tried to remove it, but it didn't come off. They were left with no option but to cut it. Chris asks the twins to sit on the rooftop to enjoy the sunlight, but they refuse. Catherine was worried that the twins, who always played outside in the garden, now don't want to even sit in the sunlight for a moment. She said to Chris they should leave the house tonight. Later that night, both of them sneaked out of the house through a window with the help of a rope. They ran to a nearby lake. They lay down on the grass and talked about their mother. Catherine was annoyed, as she has been gone for a long time, and she never tells them where she is going. Chris tells her to trust Corin. Upon reaching the house, Corin found a mouse and wanted to keep him as a pet. Just then, Corin arrives. She tells everyone that she has some good news. She got married to Winslow a few months back, and she just came back from their honeymoon. Catherine and Chris were both shocked and angry at this news. Chris confronted her to be wrong, leaving them here for so long. He yells at her as they are staying in the house for over 2 years, and they are losing parts of their lives in that room. Corin tells him that he can't talk to his mother like that, and she is doing her best. Catherine stood up and said that she bet that Bart doesn't even know about him. Corin replied she has to hide it, otherwise her plan will fail. Chris and Catherine were looking out the window. Just then Olivia entered, and looking out of the window was against the rules. She orders Chris to take off his shirt for his punishment. While Chris was being punished, Chris and the twins hid in the attic. Later, Catherine went to help Chris with his wounds. They shared their feelings with each other. Just in that moment, they lost control over themselves and shared a passionate kiss. Later that day, Catherine leaned towards Chris when Olivia entered the room. Olivia was shocked and started asking them what they were doing. Chris suddenly falls to her feet and starts asking for her forgiveness. He says that he accepts that he made a terrible mistake. Catherine was shocked to see him do that. Olivia asks him to pray as only God can forgive them. When Olivia leaves, Chris starts laughing. Catherine gave him a confused look. He told her that he took a print of her key so that they can get out of there. He starts making a key. Catherine says that they can steal the money from their mother, as she is careless with handling the money. They both went to Corin's room and started looking for cash. They left the room with some cash. They noticed that an electric fence was being put up near the house. Chris went to see if there is a way they can get past it, and he saw an electric switch which will turn off the current from the fence. Meanwhile, Catherine went into her mother's room and found Bart lying asleep. She was curious, so she kissed him and ran back to the room. Chris was returning to the room when he overheard a conversation between Corin and Bart about a young girl kissing him in his sleep. Bart thought it was one of the maids, but Chris figured it out. He goes to their room in anger and starts yelling at Catherine that she will ruin their plan of getting out. They both started kissing each other and made love. Chris tells Catherine that he loves her. Corin is informed that one of the twins is very unwell one day, but she refuses to take him to the hospital. Catherine becomes furious and accuses Corin of being the cause of the twins' illness, and Corin slaps her. Finally, she consents to take the twin to the hospital. The following morning, Corin returns to see them and informs them that the twin has passed away. She explains that they tried everything, but because he was so ill, he couldn't survive. They are all devastated, and Catherine and Chris decide to leave. They will steal all the valuables and money at night and flee. While stealing at night, they overhear the maids chatting among themselves. They are also stealing, and one of them suggests that because everyone is being fired due to the death of Corin's father, they should take as much as they can. When Chris learns that Corin's father passed away 6 months ago, Corin decides to keep the children in the attic forever because she likes her new life and hasn't told Winslow about it. When Chris goes upstairs, he notices that their little sister is sick. Catherine then shows him a dead mouse that their little sister had fed, since the mouse died after receiving a donut from her that day. This indicates that the donuts Corin had sent them were poisonous, which may have contributed to the death of their little brother. Chris tells everyone to go to the attic because he knows Olivia is afraid of the attic, so he also takes her there and locks the door. They then climb down the window to escape from what they are trying to escape from. They then flee through the window. They all left on a train. Catherine promises that they would never return to that house, but that they will one day meet their mother. By being with Chris, Catherine gets her revenge. That's it for today's recap. Don't forget to support us by clicking on subscribe button. Thanks for watching.